In this section, we're going to discuss sort of a case in Excel, where we'll try and solve one of the key issues that comes while dealing with a lot of data on Excel files. The issue is in terms of cleaning the data and then essentially doing analysis on it and representing it in a certain format that is required. Now, this will involve a lot of the functions that we have already kind of learnt about and used. For this purpose, we're going to look at values of three different stock market indices: India, Japan, and the USA. Now, how are these values available with us? These are the stock indices of these three countries. So, in India, for example, you have the BSE Sensex and NSE Nifty. We're using Nifty here. This is India. The similar index in Japan is called the Nikkei, and the index in the US is called the Dow Jones, right? So we have taken data for these three indices. The data starts on 4th of January 2010, and it goes for all of these indices up to 4th of September 2015, right? That is the final data that is available with us. These are the values of the indices which are available. So what you see here in this column is the 5,232, 277 was the value of the Nifty index on that day. And as the stock markets trade on a daily basis, the value of these indices change on a daily basis. So investors could invest at a certain level and get a certain return out of it over a period of time. That's what the value of this index tells you. Similar is the case with Japan. Similar is the case with the US index, right? Now, there are two or three key issues that we will encounter in this kind of a solution. If we go right at the bottom of this data, we find that 4th of September 2015 for India ends in the 1438th row. For US, it goes even further. It ends in the 1490th row. And for Japan, it actually ends somewhere here, which means the number of data points that are available for all these days is different for each of these indices. And why would that be? Is because of holidays. Now, holidays could be different for different markets. So, for example, in India, we may have 15th of August as a holiday, but that may not be the case in, let's say, Japan. So let's look at this. 15th of August would be a holiday in India, but that may not be the case with, let's say, US or Japan or whatever in certain cases, right? Similarly, 26th of January would be a holiday in India, but 26th of January is where both these indices are actually trading, right? So when we represent the data, obviously this discrepancy in terms of where is it the coming is going to create a problem. We would ideally want to represent the data. Let's understand what is a complete problem statement here. We're saying we want to create a table with details represented in an error-free format, calculate statistical parameters for indices such as what is the average return and the risk, which is given by the standard deviation, and represent the relative movement in the form of a chart. So how much returns you would have generated on each of them, you have to represent that in the form of a chart, right? Now, what we want to represent is available here on the data cleaning sheet. So we put in a set of dates, and because we are in India, we put in all the dates where the Indian market was functional on this particular sheet, right? So we have put in all those dates here. Now we need to get the data from the data sheet to this sheet and represent them side by side in a tabular format. So that's our first task, that we need to put in this data and represent this in a tabular format, more so that it contains no errors, and we can then use the data for further analysis after that. So the first point is around data representation itself, where we have to use certain functions and put in the data in a tabular format such that it stays error free and it gives an easier representation to read the data, right? So that's what we are going to do first. Let's go to the data cleaning sheet, and we know that we can use something like a VLOOKUP and get the data here, right? When we use VLOOKUP, we will realize a few interesting things that will start playing out. So let's actually start doing that, right? So we use a VLOOKUP function. And what is the lookup value? We are looking for the date, the specific date that we are looking at. That's 4th of January 2010. Where are we looking it up? We are going to look it up in the table here where Nifty value is available. Only this table where Nifty value is available. That's where we are looking this data at. And we can freeze this data point. And then we are looking for column 2 in this. And we are looking for an exact match here, 0. We don't want an approximate match. We want an exact match. We get the data 5232.2002. Is that the first data that is available? 5232.2 is the data that is available. So this seems to be correctly established here, 5232.2002. Can we get the values for Nikkei? So let's do a VLOOKUP again. And this time we will open the function set and see what comes in. What is the lookup value? Once again, the lookup value is going to be January 4th, 2010, the date. So we are looking up for the date here. Where are we going to look it up in? We're going to look it up in the second table now, where Nikkei is available as a data. So let's put this on this side. Select the entire table of data on Nikkei, freeze this, press F4 and freeze this. Again, we are looking for the second column and we want an exact match, right? So we want an exact match with the second column. We click on OK and we get the data for Nikkei as well. We move ahead and we do the same analysis for Dow Jones as well. So we do a clicking of VLOOKUP and now let's open this again. Lookup value 4th of January, the date, table array. Now we are looking at the table around Dow Jones, which is this one, and we press F4 so that it freezes itself. When we drag it down, it comes as the same data. We put in 2 there, and range lookup is 0. We want an exact match there as well. So we get 10654, 10583. Let's look at if this data is correct. 10583, 10654 is what is the data that is available, right? First things first, if we drag it down till here, you find that somewhere on the Nifty we have 4 decimal points, we have 2 here, we have 2 here. If we keep dragging it down, that might do some interesting, give us some interesting data points. Now, the first thing that happens that catches our eye is that there are some errors here. So we find certain number of errors which are available here and here. Now these are most likely because the market was closed on those days, right? So let's look at whether that is the case. 11th of January is the first error, and we realize while the Indian market is open on that day and the US market is also open on that day, we do realize that the Japanese market does not seem to be open on that day. It seems to be closed on that day. It seems to be a holiday for them. So obviously the market value that you're getting is incorrect, right? That's the first problem that comes in. The second problem that comes in is essentially some of the data points themselves are error data points, right? So automatically when you're picking up data itself, it is going to throw an error, and that's going to create a little bit of an issue in our overall calculation. So let's solve this one by one in terms of our issues. So on the 11th of January, if the Japanese market is closed, then basically if the market is closed, the stock's value or the index value should be the same as the last day. So ideally I should be putting the last day's value into this particular cell. When I find an error, essentially I have to put in this value here. I have to put in this value here. That's how error handling is supposed to work here. So I'm saying that if there is an error, then take last day value, else take same day value, correct? Now the same day value is what we are calculating using VLOOKUP, but if this is throwing an error, then we have to use the last day value. The error will only come if there is no value available, which basically means that there seems to be a holiday, right? So how do we use this function? If you remember, Excel has a function called as if error, right? Let's look at what is the parameter that will go in if error. So you press on if error and click on open. You see what comes out is value which is being put therein, and if there is an error, then what value is you have to what value you have to consider. So in this particular case, what we are going to see is that the value which is there is the VLOOKUP, and the value if error is there is the last day value that has to come in, correct? That's what we have to plug in if we are looking at this data. So let's actually try and incorporate this. Now, the value which was coming in our case, this is going to become a function like if error, and I'll do a VLOOKUP within this. The VLOOKUP will throw a value. If that VLOOKUP is an error, then I'm going to take the last day value, correct? That is the calculation that we have to plug in. So let's do that, and let's do that for the first error day that we see so that we know whether we are correct or not, right? So what will I do is in front of this VLOOKUP, we will have to look at the address bar here. Here is where we are writing and doing the calculations. In front of this VLOOKUP, I'm going to type if error and open a bracket, right? Now this VLOOKUP is the first argument in itself. So I close the bracket. Now value if error, if I open the function set now, you will see that the value is throwing an error. It shows NA. Now if there is an error, then I need to look at the previous day value. I can select the previous day value and click OK here, and we find that now in this particular cell, it puts the value as the previous day value, correct? So that solves our problem partially. Let's see if we can incorporate this in all the cells. So I go here right at the top and press if error, then, and in fact I have to do it from the second day onwards because the first day the value is anyway available. Second day onwards we have to put in the formula of if error, the VLOOKUP value, and if this is throwing an error, then you get the previous day value, correct? Same happens with the second one. I'm not copying and pasting it because the VLOOKUP data is different, right? So VLOOKUP and the previous day value if that is the case. Similarly, in the third one, I'm going to write if error, open bracket, VLOOKUP, and we can, this is the VLOOKUP that has opened up. I have to rewrite it. If error, open bracket, VLOOKUP, comma, and the previous one, bracket close. And if we want, we can click on this if error and open this, and we see VLOOKUP throws a particular value. If error throws the previous day's value, right? If error throws the previous day value, that's the previous day value, which is if error value if error is throwing in. But because this value is available, there's no error, the if error function throws the first value, which is the correct value. So we click on OK, that comes here, and now I can drag this entire set down to see what happens, right? So let's actually see this dragging down, and we can actually see what happens. We see the errors seem to have gone. Let's go here and double click, and it should go all the way up to down, right to the last value which is available, right? Now let's check the last values. So for Nifty, what is the last value? 7655.05. Do we see that? 7655.05. For Nikkei, it's 17792. So I have to go here and go up and see. We see the value right on the last day, 4th of September, 17792. And for Dow Jones, what is the value? 16102. We see 16102. So this seems to be correct. The problem, however, is if you look at these data points, there's no decimal here. There are 2 here, there are 3 here, there is 4 here. It does not look very readable, right? And there are some times when Excel files and databases will throw these data points for us. So we obviously need to format it so that it looks much more readable. So I'll put this point here, and we don't necessarily need decimal, so I'll remove all the decimal points here, right? Now, this is a functional database that we have created where we have taken the values of dates as the dates on which the Indian market is open, and we have looked at what is the value that these individual markets have thrown on those particular dates. We have done the error handling around it. So we will see that there is no error that you will see in this entire table now. There is no error at all that we will notice in this entire table anywhere. And based on these values, now we can go ahead and do our further calculations that would come in. That's the first understanding that we get in this kind of a scene, where how do we go about handling errors and removing those errors in these databases. So we did two tasks here, just to quickly repeat it. First, we assumed only days when Nifty data is available, right? So we have assumed this, only days when Nifty data is available. And second, we use the function if error to get last day data when no data is present, right? So if the day is a holiday for some reason, the previous day data is available for us, and that data comes out and we get this data coming in, correct? So that's what we have solved and basically done this. We can do one more thing here, which is formatting of the dates as well so that they read better. So let's do that. This is here. We select this cell, we click on date, and we see short date, we see long date, correct? And we see more number formats. So let's go to more number formats, and we can choose any of these data points like 14th March 2012 and so on and so forth. Let's say we select 14 March 2012. Now let's click OK, and obviously it becomes too big a number to kind of note, so I don't want that to happen. So we go and format cells, and in this, instead of this, we go to custom. Now when you look at custom cell, it says DDDD MMDDYY kind of a thing, and we can try and remove one of the data points. So let's say this is what we are looking at, and we have removed one M, correct? So if you see, I'll go back to this once again, format cells, we go to custom. Now custom shows 2 in the last. We can click on this one, DDMMM and Y, and I can just select this and click on OK, and it gives 4th Jan. And then I can format this and put this here. I can format the painter and go right down into this entire cell, select this entire set and paste all of it, right? So this is still here and we've pasted it till here. So that data is available. The other thing we could have done is we could have put in the date somewhere here in a cell. Let's say we put in the date as 31st Jan 2015, and this is the format that I want to stick. I can select this and put it like this, right? So this data can also come in. So let's do that. So what we'll do is we'll do a Control C, and you select this entire set and paste special, and you paste only the formats, you paste the formats, and that goes. If you have done a simple Control C, Control V, all the dates would have become 4th of January. Now we have pasted only the formats, so all the dates became this. So that's the first part of our data cleaning function, where we have cleaned the data, put the data in a logical format, and removed any kind of errors which were there. This looks much cleaner in terms of representation. I can remove this. Now we continue with our second part, which is calculation of the returns of these particular indices, right? So what I'll do is I'll copy this and paste it here and say index returns, right? Calculation of index returns. We can copy these as well. Now, how do we calculate the returns in an index? If you look at an index, typically your returns, let's say something was at 100 and the next day it went to 102. How do I calculate the return? The return is 2%. How do I calculate it? That is 102 minus 100, which is the change in the day, divided by the previous day value. So today minus yesterday divided by yesterday, right? Or generically speaking, final value minus initial value divided by initial value. And that should give me the daily returns in these indices, correct? So let's calculate it based on this formula. For Nifty, it will be 5278 minus 5232 divided by 5232. And we put the top numbers in a bracket. If we don't do that, the calculation will move in a format that it will first divide. So let's look at this, and I'll first try and actually remove these brackets. So let's remove the brackets and see what happens. When you remove the brackets, what you find as data is essentially 5277. What did it do? I calculated the number as 5278 minus 5232 divided by 5232. If I do not put a bracket, it takes this as 1. First it calculates this. Remember, in our mathematics we would have read about BODMAS rule, where bracket is solved first. Otherwise, in terms of division, multiplication, addition and subtraction, the first calculation will be on division, and then it does 5278 minus 1. So it is necessary for us to put that bracket in, otherwise it will give an error value. So I have to put in 5278 minus 5232 and then divide this entire thing by 5232. That will give me the return, correct? So let's change this, put the brackets again into this calculation, and we get the value in percentage terms as 0.87%. Best part is I can now drag it here and I can copy and paste this entire set and we get our data. You see, Dow Jones fell by 0.11% on that day. Nikkei went up by 0.25%. Nifty went up by 0.87% on that day. And basically you find all the data points which are available for us in terms of return calculation for these index values. So we have the return calculations with us now. We had a cleaned data set available with us any which ways, and you'll find some of the days the return calculation will give you a 0 value. Here is because on this day Nikkei was closed, so we have, if you remember, taken the previous day's value only, and that made that value to be 0%. But that's okay, because in the larger context of things, if we are going to look at a clean database, this looks more easily readable as compared to what is the actual error data. Plus, it does not impact our overall calculation too much in terms of our understanding on how the index has moved, because on that day the index was not even moving, right? That is the calculation of returns that we have done in this particular section. Our next task would basically be to calculate statistical targets, which would follow in the subsequent video.